Salah. Let's now take a look at the top stories making news at this hour. Several legislators are currently at the funeral home to mourn with the family members of Bonchari Member of Parliament John Oro. Let's now cross over and listen in.
You misunderstood my question. What did you understand?
Wonderful service for this country. So to his family, we want to say pole sana. We want to convey our condolences. We want to tell them that God would give them also the grace that would enable them to see Mzee laid to rest, and that God would give them the necessary peace and understanding that would see them through these very difficult moments. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the state. I also want to join my colleagues in sincerely thanking you for honoring the invite to come and cover this event when we are receiving our colleague, the late Mheshimiwa Honorable Oyoka. I'm Ben Momanyi, the MP for Borabu and a commissioner with Parliamentary Service Commission. I also want to condole with the family and the people of Bonchari during these very trying moments. I know it's very difficult for the family. I know it's very difficult for the community, but we cannot question God. As a commission, I'm just from a meeting which was being chaired by our Speaker of the National Assembly, who is also the Chairman of the Parliamentary Service Commission, where we've agreed on how we are going to conduct the funeral service, how we are going to conduct ourselves during this funeral period, where the body of our late brother has already arrived at the airport, so it's making its way here. We will be receiving it here in a short while. So we have agreed, and yesterday on the floor of the House, an ad hoc committee, a funeral committee for members of Parliament was communicated to the floor, where I was appointed as a chair for this funeral committee. We have also come up with a team of all directors in Parliament who are going to be the officers conducting this exercise. Therefore, I want to assure you that we are going to conduct a very peaceful exercise. Our brother was a peace-loving person, very quiet, he didn't have issues with anybody, and as the Kisi team, all the members of Parliament are members of that committee. We will make sure that we indeed lay our late brother to rest in a very peaceful way. I want to thank the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Now, the National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee is currently probing officials of a company, Azure Limited, which has allegedly awarded a 348 million shilling tender to supply PPEs to the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA. In the ongoing probe, former ESCC boss Halake Wako has been named as one of the signatories in the company. Let's cross over to Parliament buildings and listen in.
Yes. Thank you very much. We'll set a agenda and we'll let you know. Please call in the next witnesses. Okay, we'll go and have lunch together. Oh.
Well, let's now elsewhere. Malaria infections have increased in the country, with Busia and Siaya counties being recording the highest fatalities. Rather, the infection rate in the two counties is now 6 times higher than the national average. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe has attributed this to the presence of massive breeding grounds for mosquitoes, further adding that the COVID-19 pandemic paralyzed the fight against malaria last year.
We fulfill His Excellency's call to action with the unveiling of Kenya's End Malaria Council. This council is the 5th to be launched in the African continent after Eswatini, Uganda, Zambia, and Mozambique. It will play a very critical role in mobilizing local resources to drive the agenda of malaria control and elimination in Kenya in a much more sustainable way. According to the World Health Organization's World Malaria Report 2020, and I recognize and appreciate the presence of the local representative, Rudy Eggers, there were 215 million malaria cases and 384,000 malaria deaths in Africa in 2019. It concerns us, therefore, that malaria incident rates in Africa has plateaued since 2015, when it was expected to be on a downward trend. Consequently, Africa is not on track to achieve its 2020 target of reducing malaria incidence and mortality by 40% and the goal of eliminating malaria by 2030. Whilst it's true, for the national average, the burden of malaria is not spread evenly across our great country. The greatest burden, as was ably demonstrated here in the presentation, is in Busia and Siaya, where incidence is more than 6 times higher than the national average.
Now let's get back to the probing KEMSA billions. The National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee is currently probing officials of a company, Azure Limited, which was allegedly awarded a 348 million shilling tender to supply PPEs to the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA. In the ongoing probe, former EACC boss Halake Owako has been named as one of the signatories in the company. Let's cross over to Parliament buildings and listen in.
Did you draft that letter?
There's a letter we wrote about I think
We really need to get answers, colleagues, and it's the only way. I'm going to ask you this again. What did you write in that letter? Who wrote that letter for you?
no one did write it for me.
Who?
No one.
No one wrote it for you?
Yes.
Who wrote that letter?
I think she cannot answer that question.
No, Honorable Kandie, we have to get these answers, and it is not for any member to be able to answer anything on behalf. I'm going to ask you this again, Zubeda.
Yes.
This is a committee of Parliament.
Yes.
We need to get to the bottom of this. You've been told that you know, people are coming out here and talking about COVID billionaires. I'm asking you this question again. I'm asking you again. Who wrote the letter requesting for an extension? Esther, we need to get an answer.
Yes.
Who wrote the letter requesting for the extension? Was it Fanis?
No.
Was it you?
Yeah, I remember writing a letter, but I don't remember.
Was it Stanley Kinyanjui?
No, he wasn't.
Was it Mr. Alake?
No.
So I'm asking you this again.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
This committee has more things to do. We will not allow you on the auspices of telling us that you've got selective amnesia. I'm asking you a simple question. Who wrote the letter?
To get the extension, it is me.
What did you say in that letter?
Yeah, simple. He can produce the letter if he's the one who wrote, and if the letter is there, he can produce the letter. If she doesn't have, you can say.
Honorable members, if we take that direction, then it gives people time to be able to think on what they... I'm asking you again, what did you write on that letter?
I wrote.
Now away from KEMSA on to Maraga's succession, 10 candidates have been shortlisted for the position of Chief Justice ahead of their interviews in April this year. The 10, according to the Judicial Service Commission, were shortlisted from a list of 13 applicants who had shown interest to succeed retired Chief Justice David Maraga. They include Justice Said Chitembwe, Professor Patricia Mbote, Justice Martha Koome, Justice Marete Njagi, Philip Murgor, and Justice Ndumanderi. Others in the race include lawyer Fred Ngatia, Justice William Ouko, Dr. Wekesa Amoni, and Alice Yano. This as the axle on Professor Mario Otinga, Otonde Ontweka, and Brian Matagaro. 9 other jurists will also be interviewed for the position of Supreme Court Judge to replace retired Judge of the Bench, Justice Jackton Ojwang. Now, a public participation on the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 is currently ongoing in Nairobi ahead of the County Assembly sitting to debate the bill tomorrow. Let's cross over to City Hall and listen in.
Tunaelewana?
Basically, this is to say that you have changed your names to Melody.
Na vijana na tujue mchezo tunacheza namna gani. Watu wa Nairobi, mimi nimeona sauti yenu na nimeona kwa kauli moja hapa, hata sijui kama kuna mtu anasema hii BBI haitapita. Sababu sisi ndio wenye kupitisha na nyinyi mumeenda mbele yetu na nimeona mumeinua mkono nyinyi wote ni kwamba BBI imeshapita. Wangapi wanaona kama BBI iko sawa? Sasa kesho kilichobakia ni speaker aseme the ayes have it. Na story mei, hiyo ingine ni tukutane pale uwanjani sasa, si ndio? Tupatane pale uwanjani, tuonane na wao macho kwa tujue wao wako wangapi na sisi tuko wangapi. Kwa sababu hawa, nimeshaona wako na kikundi kimoja wanahamishanga kutoka sehemu moja hadi nyingine. Sehemu moja hadi nyingine. Na hiyo tutajua wataihamisha mpaka kwa debe. Ndio tunataka kujue. Na hiyo style yao ya siasa tumeshaiona hapa Kenya. Na tunataka kuambia wao ni wanafunzi wa siasa aina hiyo. Kuna wataalamu wa hiyo siasa wako wanawaangalia tu kwa umbali. Na hii kengele itakapopigwa mtajua ya kwamba hii siasa mnafanya saa hii. Sana hapa area katikati hapa kuna vijana waliingia siasa juzi na wamedanganyika sana hii area ya Central hapa. Hii vijana hii watajua hii Kenya hawajui. Kwa sababu hii Kenya sio hiyo wanafikiria. Ukisema leo kitu kama mwanasiasa kiongozi simama nayo. Wasikuwa wanazungumza na midomo miwili huku na huku, leo ni hii, kesho ni ingine. Leo wanatuambia Kenya haiko tayari kwa rais mwingine Mkikuyu. Ikisemekana sasa rais Mkikuyu hawezi kuchukua saa hii, tena ati umetenga wa Kikuyu, wewe unapiga siasa ya kikabila. Na wanasema wakibadilika.
Now, Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i has inspected development projects and hosted meetings on security-related issues. The project inspection tour started at Mwache Dongokundu before visiting the Liwatoni Floating Bridge and the Liwatoni Fish Processing Factory. The CS has also lauded President Uhuru Kenyatta for different projects in the country. The CS further said that the government says it will compensate Kinango residents affected by the multi-billion Dongokundu project by the end of this month.
I am here accompanied by a team of senior government officials. My colleague Ruth Kagia from the Office of the President, PS Dr. Julius Muya, the PS National Treasury, retired General Dr. Kihalangwa, the PS from Public Works, and so many other senior officials, the Coast Regional Security Team led by our Regional Commissioner, Mr. John Elungata, and so many of my colleagues who have come along with me to look at a number of projects. This particular one is very important, this Liwatoni Fish Factory and the revival of it. You all understand how the President is so determined to revive the blue economy and advance the blue economy in the country. The revival of this project is fundamental in achieving that objective. And a lot of work started last year. The government has put in resources to ensure that this factory is revived and that we are well underway towards a total revival of and review of our blue economy to be sure that we are creating jobs, we are tapping into the natural resources we have in the oceans and in the lakes, and therefore we are able to provide employment for our people. And there are deadlines that we have been given even by the President that we have to sort this out in a few months, and several things must happen. Sometimes we like spending time criticizing each other or sometimes pointing out mistakes. We should pause and celebrate. Thank God for the wonderful country we have. Thank God for the visionary leadership we have in our president and his courage and commitment.
Well, it is time to take a short break, but we'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
It means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
Welcome back. You are watching Newsfeed here on TV47. The National Elections Board of the ODM party has announced that only legitimate members and supporters of the party will be allowed to participate in the grassroots elections. National Elections Board Chair Catherine Muma says non-members and non-supporters of the party won't be allowed into the polling stations. Elections for grassroots leaders began Monday and are expected to be concluded by end of this week.
We are calling on members to verify their membership with the ODM party. So we are asking all members that if you plan to participate in the ODM grassroots elections as an aspirant or as a voter, that you must ensure that you are on the ODM register, because we will not allow anybody to vote merely because you're a supporter. I believe
the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, has embarked on a public consultation exercise to get the opinions of stakeholders on 11 new draft petroleum regulations before their approval. This comes barely 3 months after the state agency announced new regulations on the solar energy subsector that sparked outrage among Kenyans who are shifting from grid power over its huge cost and unreliability. Leading the opinion collection exercise, EPRA Acting Director General Daniel Kiptoo said the regulations will provide a legal framework for the authority to streamline the importation of petroleum products, business licensing, and construction of petroleum facilities.
Approval of common user facilities. In order for us to be able to streamline this sector, we have the licensing of importation of petroleum products, construction of facilities, road transport, retail stations, and pricing of petroleum, which we do on a month-by-month basis. These regulations are aimed at improving the supply of distribution of products in the country, and also ensuring that only prudently incurred costs are passed on to the consumers.
We are looking at something called the Environment Liability Policy that has been legislated in the Act, that when you apply for your license, you have to give us commitment as the directors of that company that you uphold the high standards of environment, health, and safety to ensure that these products don't percolate into our soils, they don't go into our rivers, they don't go into our water bodies, that's the oceans and the lakes, and that we can be able to safeguard the health of the people and use these products sustainably for the future.
Now, as Catholics across the world celebrate this year's Ash Wednesday, the government has been urged to incorporate the church in critical decision-making in a bid to ensure peace among Kenyans. Meanwhile, Christians have been urged to fast during this Lent season and help the less fortunate in the society. Ash Wednesday marks the start of Lent season in the Western Church and takes place 46 days before Easter.
Serikali tunaomba iweze kujumuisha kanisa katika mipango yote inaendelea nayo. Kwa viongozi tunawaomba viongozi wa serikali tabaka mbalimbali, hata vyama vya kisiasa tuweze kushirikiana.
Let's now move on. The national government has begun to conduct trainings for law enforcement officers based in counties on how to combat terrorism and relay information based on the same at the grassroots level, and how which are easy targets, the grassroots of course, which are easy targets for terrorism and radicalization to counter terrorism security agencies. The new strategy is aimed at countering terrorism and violent extremism in the country at the key hotspots prone to attacks by terror groups. Already the training has been done in Mombasa and Kwale, with a similar exercise ongoing in Kilifi County, where law enforcement officials are undergoing a thorough 3-day training on how to counter violent extremism.
Actors in the security spectrum, we want to. It can be even wale wenye waamini chochote, lakini inategemea ni kitu gani unaambiwa, kitu gani.
Katika ile spirit ya multi agency ndio sasa tukasema tuungane na tuweze kushirikiana haswa kwa hili tisho la ugaidi. Na county effort ambayo kwa upande wa enforcement iko na nyinyi. Tumeweza kuja kugundua kuwa vile vile muko na a role to play.
Ni vizuri sana kwamba jambo hili linaweza kufanyika wakati huu ambapo kwamba kwanza wakati huu utalii wetu umeenda chini sana, na jambo kama hili nafikiria ni wakati mzuri lifanyike wakati tunapoendelea kutafuta mbinu za kurudisha utalii. Na utalii of course tunajua umeenda chini. Moja wa sababu zetu ni mambo ya terrorism ambayo imeimprove sana, haswa kwa sababu ya serikali ama jeshi.
Now, university leaders are calling for harmonization of corporal punishment, guidance and counseling to curb rising cases of indiscipline in schools. Dr. Kut Ochogo said whereas corporal punishment was outlawed, it could still be applied in special circumstances to make errant students realize their mistakes. He was speaking at Mulaha Anglican Church in Siaya Town. The university don said guidance and counseling alone has failed to improve the discipline among students, hence the need for the government and stakeholders to think of the best way to curb the rising unrest as a result into damage of property and event of loss of life rather.
I want to tell you that some of us were also caned in primary school and even secondary school, and we still performed and we never died. Of course, you are aware that every teacher has a way of misusing the role that is given to that teacher, and that is the reason why you find that they were misusing it, misusing caning. But I want to say that caning, if it